Silence is not empty. Silence is crowded with truth. Today, I invite you into a space rarely explored, a space beyond noise, beyond craving, beyond the constant pull of sensation. Most people walk through life surrounded by inner sound. The body asks, the mind reacts, desire repeats its demands. This endless rhythm feels normal, yet it keeps a deeper awareness asleep. When stimulation never stops, clarity never arrives. In this video, we enter a quieter path. Abstinence here is not rejection or punishment. It is a deliberate lowering of volume. A pause long enough for something subtle to rise. In Shaolin training, restraint was never about control through force. It was about listening through stillness. When the body grows quiet, signals once buried beneath habit begin to surface. Restlessness reveals fear. Craving exposes emptiness. Calm uncovers direction. Many ancient practitioners discovered that the strongest insights appeared during periods of withdrawal, not action. Lesser-known teachings speak of warriors sitting alone after long training, facing urges without movement, learning more from that stillness than from years of combat. This video will guide you through that hidden dimension. You will learn why constant indulgence weakens awareness, how silence reshapes inner strength, and why abstinence sharpens intuition rather than suppressing life. Stay until the end, because the final insight connects discipline, presence, and freedom in a way rarely discussed. This is not philosophy for comfort. This is practice for mastery. Welcome to Heng Yi Chronicles, a place for those ready to refine their inner world. Take a moment to subscribe and walk this path with us, step by silent step. The body remembers everything you refuse to hear. In Shaolin practice, we are taught that impulses do not arrive by accident. They come like unfinished conversations, knocking again and again at the door of awareness. Hunger tightens the stomach. Restlessness shifts the spine. Desire stirs warmth and urgency. Most people rush to answer these signals immediately, not out of wisdom, but habit. In doing so, the message dissolves the moment satisfaction arrives. The body falls quiet, but nothing has been understood. In training, I watched young practitioners mistake this silence for peace. Yet peace that comes from indulgence is temporary, like snow melting on warm ground. The impulse always returns, louder and more demanding. When the body is no longer distracted by constant fulfillment, something unusual happens. Sensations linger, they stretch time, they invite attention instead of reaction. Lust reveals longing for connection. Hunger points to imbalance, not just lack of food. Restlessness exposes fear of stillness. These are not enemies to be defeated, but teachers waiting to be recognized. In ancient Shaolin halls, restraint was practiced not to harden the heart, but to soften perception. A monk would sit with discomfort, breathing steadily, allowing the urge to speak without interruption. At first, the mind resists. It labels the sensation as a problem. Yet when no action follows, the body begins to explain itself. Patterns emerge. Old habits show their roots. What once felt chaotic gains structure. Observation transforms pressure into clarity. Over time, impulses lose their authority, not because they are suppressed, but because they have been fully heard. The body no longer shouts when it trusts it will be listened to. This is how inner dialogue becomes honest. This is how silence starts to teach. The body was never meant to command the journey, only to guard the entrance. In ancient Shaolin understanding, the body is a gate through which life passes, not a ruler issuing orders. When the gate is left unattended, anything may enter, impulse after impulse, habit after habit, until direction is lost. Discipline was introduced not as a form of punishment, but as careful alignment, like adjusting the hinges so the gate opens only when the moment is right. Abstinence serves this purpose quietly. It creates a pause between urge and action, a narrow space where choice becomes visible. Without this pause, the body reacts faster than thought, and awareness is pulled behind like a shadow. Through restraint, the practitioner learns to stand at the gate and observe. An impulse arrives, demanding movement. Instead of obedience, there is recognition. Breath steadies, attention sharpens. The urge is felt fully without being followed. In early training, this moment feels heavy, as if something essential is being denied. Over time, it reveals something else entirely. Power begins to shift. The body no longer decides the direction of the mind. Awareness steps forward and assumes its rightful place. This is inner mastery, not domination. Ancient teachers warned that a body indulged without guidance grows impatient and loud, while a body trained with respect becomes cooperative and calm. Abstinence refines this relationship. It does not weaken desire. It educates it. The practitioner learns when to act and when to wait, when to engage and when to remain still. Discipline becomes a language spoken between awareness and flesh. The gate opens by choice, not compulsion. In this space, freedom appears not as endless permission, but as conscious direction, where each movement arises from clarity rather than reflex. Desire has a quiet way of pointing the eyes away from home. It stretches attention outward, toward taste, touch, movement, and anticipation, until the mind becomes a traveler with no map. In this outward chase, thoughts multiply, restlessness grows, and presence thins. Ancient practitioners observed that the more sensation is pursued, the less grounded the inner world becomes. Abstinence interrupts this momentum. When the familiar sources of stimulation are removed, attention has nowhere to run. It turns inward by necessity, like water flowing back toward its source. This inward movement is rarely gentle at first. Without distraction, the mind meets what it has been avoiding. Unsettled thoughts surface. Old emotions stir. Silence exposes the tension that noise was covering. In Shaolin understanding, this discomfort is not a warning, but an invitation. It signals that awareness has crossed a threshold. Clarity does not appear immediately, it is uncovered gradually. As attention stays within, scattered thoughts begin to organize themselves. The breath grows more noticeable. Sensations become precise rather than overwhelming. The mind learns to rest without being entertained. Discipline supports this process, not by force, but by steadiness. Each moment of restraint strengthens the ability to remain present with what arises. Over time, the inward gaze reveals patterns once hidden by constant engagement. Desire is seen not as a command, but as a movement of energy seeking direction. When attention remains centered, that energy settles and sharpens perception. Ancient teachings remind us that clarity does not come from adding more, but from seeing clearly what is already there. Through abstinence, the mind stops chasing reflections and begins to recognize the still surface beneath them. Control often feels strongest at the moment of indulgence. The choice appears immediate, satisfying, and personal, giving the impression of freedom. Yet ancient Shaolin philosophy observes something quieter beneath this feeling. When action follows impulse without pause, who is truly deciding? Abstinence lifts the veil on this illusion. By refusing the instant response, it reveals how quickly the body reaches forward and how rarely the mind is consulted. In training, practitioners were taught that freedom is not movement without limits, but the ability to stop before movement begins. This pause is small, almost invisible, yet it carries great power. Within it, awareness awakens. The urge is still present, pressing for release, but it is no longer steering the direction. At first, this exposure is unsettling. Habits once believed to be chosen reveal themselves as automatic. Patterns repeat with precision, showing how often behavior has been rehearsed without thought. Abstinence does not judge this discovery, it simply illuminates it. The practitioner stands still and watches the machinery of desire operate. Over time, this observation weakens the authority of impulse. What once felt urgent begins to slow. Space appears between sensation and response. This space is where self-mastery is trained. Ancient teachers compared it to holding a bow without releasing the arrow. Strength is present, but action is withheld until clarity gives the signal. Indulgence promises relief, but relief fades quickly. Restraint offers understanding, which endures. As awareness grows, actions become fewer but more precise. The body learns that it will not always be obeyed, and in response, it grows quieter. This is not repression, it is cooperation guided by consciousness. In this way, abstinence transforms the idea of control from domination into presence, where freedom is measured not by what is taken, but by what can be released without loss. Stillness does not dull the senses, it sharpens them. When the body grows quiet, layers of unnoticed experience rise to the surface. A single breath feels deeper, a small tension in the chest becomes clear. Emotions, once blurred by movement and noise, take on distinct shape. In ancient training, practitioners learned that constant activity numbs perception, while restraint restores it. As abstinence settles into the body, thoughts begin to slow, no longer racing to keep pace with stimulation. This slowing is often misunderstood. Heightened sensitivity is mistaken for fragility, as if awareness itself were a weakness. Yet Shaolin teachings speak of refinement, not softness. A blade becomes effective not by being thick, but by being honed. In stillness, perception is honed. The mind notices shifts in energy before they grow into reaction. Emotions are felt fully without spilling into action. Sensations communicate with precision rather than urgency. At first, this clarity can feel overwhelming. Without distraction, subtle discomforts stand out, and the practitioner may believe something is wrong. Ancient teachers reassured that this phase marks progress. The body is learning to speak in a quieter language, and awareness is learning to listen. Over time, what once felt intense becomes manageable. Sensitivity transforms into discernment. The practitioner senses when to advance and when to withdraw, when to speak and when to remain silent. Discipline supports this refinement by protecting stillness from unnecessary disturbance. The body rests within calm, yet readiness remains. This is not passivity, but alert presence. In this state, awareness moves ahead of impulse, guiding action with precision. Stillness becomes a source of strength, where perception is clear, emotion is balanced, and thought serves rather than commands. Restraint begins with respect for what sustains life. In Shaolin understanding, vital energy is not endless, nor is it meant to be scattered carelessly. It is viewed as a quiet current moving through the body, nourishing strength, clarity, and intention. When energy is spent without awareness, fatigue appears not only in the muscles, but in focus and spirit. Abstinence teaches conservation, not through suppression, but through intelligent direction. By reducing unnecessary expenditure, the practitioner allows energy to gather and settle. This accumulation is subtle at first. The body feels lighter, the breath deepens, attention holds longer without strain. Ancient practitioners observed that when energy is constantly released through indulgence, presence weakens. When it is preserved, it transforms. Restraint becomes a form of listening to the body's deeper needs rather than its immediate demands. Over time, stored energy seeks expression, but not in restless pursuit. It moves upward into discipline, sharpening concentration, and strengthening resolve. Training sessions feel steadier. Stillness becomes easier to maintain. Awareness grows brighter without effort. Shaolin teachings emphasize that this redirection is natural when the body is no longer overstimulated. Energy follows attention. When attention is centered, energy supports growth instead of distraction. This process requires patience. Early stages test resolve, as old habits attempt to reclaim familiar outlets. Yet with steady practice, the body adapts. It learns that restraint is not loss, but preservation. Presence deepens as energy is no longer leaking through unconscious action. Each moment carries weight and clarity. Discipline matures into elegance, where movement is efficient and rest is restorative. In this state, abstinence is no longer a rule to follow, but a quiet agreement with life itself, honoring its limited resources by using them with intention and care. When stimulation fades, the inner landscape reveals what has been waiting beneath the surface. Silence creates space, and in that space, unresolved emotions begin to move. Boredom settles heavily, frustration tightens the jaw, loneliness lingers like an echo. Old memories rise without invitation, carrying feelings once set aside. In ancient practice, this phase was expected, even welcomed. It was understood that noise keeps these layers buried, while stillness draws them into the open. Many mistake this moment as failure, believing something has gone wrong because discomfort has appeared. Shaolin wisdom teaches otherwise. Discomfort is a sign that the process is working. The mind, no longer occupied by constant engagement, turns inward and encounters what has been avoided. Discipline holds the practitioner steady here. Instead of fleeing back to distraction, one remains present, allowing emotions to surface and pass without resistance. This patience transforms turbulence into purification. Feelings that once demanded reaction begin to soften when they are seen clearly. Memories lose their charge when they are no longer suppressed. The body releases tension it has carried silently for years. Ancient teachers compared this stage to muddy water settling in a jar. When left undisturbed, clarity appears on its own. Each wave of emotion that rises and falls refines awareness. Over time, silence becomes less heavy. The mind learns that it can endure without escape. Strength grows quietly, not through confrontation, but through acceptance. What remains after this phase is not emptiness, but space. Space for presence to deepen, for attention to steady, and for inner order to emerge. The practitioner understands then that silence was never the enemy. It was the method, patiently revealing what was ready to be released. Identity is often hidden beneath layers of routine and habit, beneath impulses that have been followed without question. When abstinence removes these familiar supports, a profound question arises: who remains when desire is no longer the guide? In Shaolin practice, this moment is neither feared nor rushed. It is observed quietly, as if watching a shadow detach from the body. At first, the absence of habitual action feels disorienting. The mind searches for familiar cues. The body aches for movement or indulgence it has known. Yet in this void, clarity begins to emerge. Without cravings to define each day, without reflexive behaviors to shape the self, the practitioner discovers the contours of identity beneath them. Values, not impulses, become the foundation. Patience, courage, integrity, and attention reveal themselves as the pillars of being, rather than the temporary satisfaction of urges. Ancient teachers understood that the self constructed on fleeting desire is fragile, constantly reshaped by circumstance. A self built on principle endures. Abstinence acts as a mirror, reflecting not what is wanted, but what is essential. Over time, each moment of restraint solidifies choice, showing that the individual is not simply a collection of impulses, but a conscious presence capable of direction. Even discomfort becomes instructive, revealing where attachments have shaped perception. As the mind grows accustomed to operating without constant indulgence, identity strengthens quietly, without show or noise. Actions begin to align naturally with values, not habit. The absence of craving becomes a lens through which authenticity is seen. In this way, the practice does more than withhold. It illuminates the essence of who one truly is, guiding the practitioner toward a self-defined, not by what is sought, but by what is chosen to honor within. Restraint alone does not teach. Endurance without awareness only builds rigidity. In Shaolin philosophy, abstinence is not a test of toughness, but a tool for insight. When the body tightens against desire, the mind often mirrors that tension, interpreting resistance as a challenge to be conquered. Yet the greatest lessons emerge not from forcing the body into submission, but from watching it patiently, without judgment. Mindfulness transforms the very nature of restraint. Each sensation, the pull of appetite, the restlessness of longing, the itch of impatience, is observed as it arises and fades. Breath becomes the anchor, attention the gentle guide. In this practice, struggle is no longer a battle, but a teacher speaking in subtle gestures. Tension in the chest, heat in the skin, the racing of thought, all carry messages. Awareness translates them into understanding. Over time, the body's complaints soften because they are heard fully, not dismissed. The mind learns to move with them rather than against them. Ancient practitioners likened this to water meeting stone. Where resistance once caused splintering, attention transforms impact into flow. Insight grows quietly, revealing patterns of habit, the roots of desire, and the moments where choice has been absent. Each wave of discomfort, when witnessed, becomes a mirror reflecting the inner landscape. This reflection allows action to arise from clarity instead of compulsion. The practitioner discovers that the source of mastery is not in resisting urges, but in understanding them. In this space, restraint and awareness converge. The body no longer feels like a battleground, the mind no longer a tyrant. Instead, the practice of abstinence becomes an instrument of wisdom, turning tension into perception, impulse into knowledge, and struggle into the quiet illumination of self-mastery. Discipline is the bridge between impulse and presence. Each moment the body urges and the mind remains steady, a quiet trust is built. Not the loud confidence of ego, but the deep assurance that one can rely on oneself. This trust grows slowly, like roots spreading beneath the surface, and becomes the foundation of true self-mastery. When abstinence is practiced with awareness, stillness, and patience, the body, mind, and spirit align. Urges no longer dictate action, and clarity arises naturally from within. Life becomes less about reaction and more about intentional movement, guided by values rather than cravings. The lessons of restraint, mindfulness, and inner observation are not meant to be abstract. They are meant to be lived, moment by moment, in the choices made each day. Start small, notice the impulses that drive behavior, and allow space between urge and action. In that space, presence grows, insight emerges, and freedom deepens. Let the practice be gentle, patient, and consistent, and over time, confidence in oneself will become natural, quiet, and unshakable. Thank you for walking this path with us today. If you found these insights meaningful, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Heng Yi Chronicles, where we explore the teachings that guide the body, mind, and spirit toward harmony and mastery.